Sorry, I had to fart, so I don't want you guys hearing that. Right? So the world building and details in Lord of the Rings, in the Lord of the Rings book is amazing, obviously. But the character development, not so much, obviously, as the characters in the book feel dull and vague. As Ivan O'Mara and J.R.R. Tolkien are opposites. We're opposites in the way we write. We're opposites, obviously. We're opposite in the way we write. Right? So Ivan O'Mara and J.R.R. Tolkien are opposites in the way they write, obviously. J.R.R. Tolkien focuses more on the world building and the details of the plot, whereas I focus more on the character development, of plot, less on the world building and details. Hence, my details are more vague, obviously. So the world building and details in Lord of the Rings, in the Lord of the Rings book, is amazing, but the character development not so much, as the characters in the book feel dull and vague, obviously. Right? Whereas the world. Whereas for my book, obviously, the character development, obviously, in the Last Hope for Xanus, in the Last Hope for Xanus, they are amazing, obviously. Right? They feel real. You'll see what I mean. The characters in my book feel very real. They jump out on the page. Obviously. Let's say that, right? They jump out on the page. The character development in The Last of Us are amazing, obviously. But the details and world building, not so much. So I'm gonna. So the one flaw of my book is that you're not gonna get as much details from my world building and all stuff. As I give very vague details, but the characters feel real and they jump on the page. That's why the book is amazing. So the character development in Last of Us are amazing, but the details and world building not so much, obviously. As the world feels vague, obviously. Feels vague. So you see how we're opposites? The world building, J.R.R. Tolkien and Ivan O'Mara are opposites in the way they write, obviously. So the world building and details in Lord of the Rings book is amazing, but the character development not so much, as the characters in the book feel dull and vague, obviously, in Lord of the Rings. I don't mean to be rude. Lord of the Rings is an amazing story, but J.R.R. Tolkien's strength is his world building and his world building and details. That's his strength, obviously. Whereas his character development is his weakness. He's not that great at character development. Whereas I'm the opposite. The character development in Last of Us are amazing, obviously. They feel real. And the characters jump out on the page, obviously. They feel real, obviously. But the details and world building, not so much, as the world feels a bit vague in my book. So the world building in my book is very vague. I give very little descriptions of what the world looks like. That's my weakness. My weakness is the world building. Last of Us has amazing world building, but I give very vague details in my book as I focus more on the characters, on the character development. Hence, the characters feel real and jump out on the page. Whereas Lord of the Rings, the characters don't jump out on the page. They feel very dull and vague. But the world building jumps on the page because there's so much going on with the details when he describes the lands, the sunset, the races, the languages, and all that stuff. You see what I'm saying here? Right. So me and J.R.R. Tolkien are opposites in the way we write. J.R.R. Tolkien focuses more on the world building and the details of the plot, obviously, which is amazing world building, obviously. But the character development, not so much, as the characters in the Lord of the Rings book feel dull and vague. The character development in Last of Us are amazing, obviously. The characters feel real, they jump on the page. But the details and world building, not so much, as the world feels a bit vague in my book, obviously. Hence, Ivan O'Mara and J.R.R. Tolkien are opposites in the way they write, obviously. Right? So I'm more show, J.R.R. Tolkien's more tell. And if you want your book to be more interesting, show, don't tell. As if you tell too much, your book will be boring. That's why Lord of the Rings is a pretty boring book, obviously. Even though the book's amazing, the book is pretty boring. I don't mean to be rude. Like, I've read Fellowship of the Ring, I've read Two Towers. The book can be what? it can be pretty boring because J.R.R. Tolkien is more what? He's all tell, man. Less show. Whereas Ivan O'Mara is what? Ivan O'Mara is show, less tell. Hence why Xanus is more interesting, obviously. That's one of Tolkien's flaw. The one flaw that Tolkien has is that he focuses more on telling, less on showing, obviously. He does a lot of showing with the characters, obviously, but he focuses more on his world building and details, which is tell. He gives you a lot of info dumps, obviously, which is less show, obviously. Whereas Ivan O'Mara focuses more on the character development by showing, less tell. Hence why Last Hope for Xanus is a better book, obviously. It's a better book. I'll say this: no offense. If I'm spelling offense wrong, okay? I don't mean to be cocky. Last Hope for Xanus, if you read the book, you see what I mean. It's a more interesting book than Lord of the Rings because J.R.R. Tolkien, even though he's a genius, he's a legend. Obviously, I respect him. I'm gonna keep his series as a treasury. Obviously, he focused more on telling, less showing. Hence why a lot of sections in the book are boring, obviously. Whereas Ivan O'Mara is more what? Show, less tell. Hence why Last of Us is a better book, no offense. And I guarantee you all the book notes, even though they respect Lord of the Rings, even though Lord of the Rings is the best fantasy novel ever written, all of them will say, yeah, Lord of the Rings can get pretty boring. Because J.R.R. Tolkien, he drags on with so much detail, he describes the land, he even describes the door, he describes what the horse looks like, he describes the sunset, he describes everything. He gives you so much info dumps, it can get repetitive and it can get very boring. He's more focused on telling his world building, obviously. Whereas I'm more focused on show, which is character development and the plot, less on world building. Hence why my world building is a bit vague. My characters for real, they jump on the page. Whereas Lord of the Rings is the opposite. The world building jumps on the page, obviously in the details, but the characters not so much as they feel very dull. See what I'm saying here? Right. So one book. So I'll say this. So Lord of the Rings is what? Strengths. Lord of the Rings strengths is what? Is world building, obviously. That's the strength of Lord of the Rings. World building and details. World building and rich details. That's the strength, obviously. Right? Weaknesses is character development. That's the weakness of Lord of the Rings. Weakness is character development. As the characters feel what? The characters, I'll say this, the characters feel dull and vague, man. They feel dull and vague. Last Hope for Xanus, strengths, obviously. Strengths is obviously what? Character development. See what I'm saying here? Character development, I'll say this, world building and rich details for the plot, obviously. For the plot. My strengths, Last of Us strength is character development for the plot. See what I'm saying? As the characters jump on the page, obviously. The plot. I'll say this, the characters jump out. They jump out, obviously, on the page. You'll see what I mean when my characters jump on the page, obviously. Last of Us weakness is obviously what? World building. I'll say world building and details. That's the weakness of Last of Us. World building and details. As what? As the lands and details are what? Are described vaguely, obviously. If that's a word, right? Are described vaguely. If that's a word. I'm spelling it wrong here. They're described vaguely in the book. See what I'm saying here? So the weakness of my book is the world building and the details, as the lands and details are described vaguely in the book. Whereas Lord of the Rings, the strength of Lord of the Rings is the world building and the richness of the details, but the weakness of that book is the character development, as the characters feel dull and vague. Whereas my book is the opposite. Last of Resilience, the strengths are the character development for the plot, as the characters jump on the page, but the characters jump on the page, but the weaknesses, I forgot the right weaknesses here. But the weaknesses is world building and details, as lands and details are described vaguely in the book. There's some sections where I describe the land in more detail and all that stuff, but my world building and my descriptions of the lands and details is described very vaguely, if that's even a word, right? The details are very vague. Whereas the character development for my book is amazing, as the characters jump on the page. Whereas Lord of the Rings is the opposite. The strength is the world building and rich details for the plot, but the weakness is the character development. Whereas the characters feel dull and vague in Lord of the Rings. That's J.R.R. Tolkien's weakness, obviously. Whereas my strength is character development for the plot. The characters jump on the page. Whereas the weakness is the world building and details, as the lands and details are described vaguely in the book, in my Last of Resilience book. See what I'm saying here? So I hope you guys see the difference. You see the difference between Ivan O'Meara and J.R.R. Tolkien. Even though J.R.R. Tolkien and Ivan O'Meara are both creative geniuses, both of us, we have a different way of writing. One focuses more on world building and the richness of the details, less on character development. The other focuses more on character development, less on the world building and the details. Hence, we both think differently. Hence, one is tell, the other is show. If you focus more on the characters, that's show. If you focus more on the details and and world building, that's tell, obviously, right? So if you focus more on on world building and details, that's tell, obviously. If you focus more on character development that's show, obviously. Hence why Last of Resilience will change the fantasy genre. As I guarantee you, after everyone reads my book, a lot of these authors are going to start okay, how did Ivan write this amazing book? How did he make his characters jump on the page? They're going to study the way I write, and in the future you're going to see a lot of authors writing the way I write my book. They're going to focus more on the character development, less on the details and the info dumps, which is Lord of the Rings, obviously. So if you focus more on world building and details, that's tell, which can be boring, obviously. Which can be boring. Hence why I stay away from info dumps, world building, and details. I focus more on the characters. That way the story is more interesting, obviously. And hence why Xanus is a better book than Lord of the Rings. Because Lord of the Rings, even though it's an amazing series, the series is pretty boring. And there's a lot of sections where I have to force myself. I guarantee you a lot of fans have to force themselves to read some sections of Lord of the Rings. Because J.R.R. Tolkien drags on for pages describing everything. He describes the door, he describes the land, he describes the sunset, you know what I'm saying? He describes the helmet, he describes the horse, he describes the lands. He also dumps you with even more information, with more lands. Like, how the heck do you expect someone to memorize to grasp how many lands you have in your book? As he has an endless list of lands that he describes in the book. It's fucking crazy, man. Amazing book, but the book series is pretty boring, obviously. So if you focus more on world building and details, which is tell, it can be boring, obviously. Hence why Lord of the Rings even though Lord of the Rings is known as being an amazing book, it's known as being black and white, as the book series is pretty boring, obviously, in some sections. So if you focus more on character development, that show, which is more interesting, right? Hence why Ivan O'Meara will change. Well, what? Will change what? Will change the fantasy genre, obviously. As a lot of people are ever going to study how I wrote my book. How did I even write this book? Will change the fantasy genre. As a lot of authors might even study my book, man. Because it's such an amazing story. The characters jump on the page. Hence why Ivan O'Meara will change the fantasy genre. And a lot of people, even these big famous authors, they might even perhaps study my book. How did Ivan write this amazing story? How did he make his characters feel so real and jump on the page? Whereas our books, we focus more on telling and info dumps, and our characters I don't jump on those pages as much as Ivan's book, because I have the gift, obviously, and that's the best story ever told. So you focus more on world building and details, that's tell, which can be boring, obviously. If you focus more on character development, that's show, which is more interesting. Hence why Ivan and Mary will change the fantasy genre, and Last of Us will change. Last of Us will what? Will change the fantasy genre, obviously. Right? So I'll call this video comparing. I'll call this video more about Lord of the Rings and the Last of Us box office. Now let's talk about the box office, okay? Let's talk about the box. Enough about J.R.R. Tolkien. I'm gonna say this: even though the Lord of the Rings series is a pretty boring series, because I don't mean to be rude. The book is amazing. J.R.R. Tolkien's a legend. I respect him. Lord of the Rings is the best fantasy novel ever written. Nothing can top that. But the series can get pretty boring, man. I'm reading the book right now. Like, there's some sections where it drags on and it can get really boring. Sometimes I even have to force myself to read 10, 20 pages because he drags on with what? With his info dumps, with his world building and on lands and sunset and all this stuff, right? Whereas my book I focus more on the characters. And I read some chapters of my book. I compared to Lord of the Rings. Oh my God, Last of Us will keep you more hooked than Lord of the Rings. Let's talk about box office, okay? Let's talk about records here, right? So Avengers what? Avengers Endgame holds the record, obviously. I think it's $2.7 billion. $2.7 billion. $billion, obviously. $1 billion, okay? 2.7 billion. Avengers Infinity War did 2 billion. And Infinity War was better than Endgame. I'm surprised Endgame beat Infinity War. Infinity War was better than Endgame. Infinity War did 2 billion. Did 2 billion in the box office. Okay. Did 2 billion. You also have Avatar. Avatar did I think 2.7 billion too. It did less than Avengers, but it did 2.7. It did 2.7 billion. 2.7 billion. You also have Star Wars. Star Wars what? Star Wars Force Awakens, obviously. Star Wars Force Awakens did 2 billion. Right, to 2 billion. So this is just a few. I'm not gonna name all the movies that gross over $1 billion. This is just a few of the names. Oh, Titanic. Titanic did I think 2.6 billion or something like that. Titanic did 2. Avatar beat Titanic, so Titanic did I think 2.7 billion or something like that. Titanic did 2. I don't know how much Titanic did, so I don't know how much Titanic did, so I'm not going to include Titanic here. But Avengers Endgame did 2.7 billion, 2.8, about 2.8 billion around. I'll say 2.8. It did about 2.8 billion. Avengers Infinity War did 2 billion. Avatar did 2.7 billion, and Star Wars Force Awakens did 2 billion. Right? Last Hope for Xanus will do a good, I'm gonna guess here, a good 12, I don't know, I'll say 11 billion, man. 11 billion, perhaps even more. It might even do even 13 billion. Because if I'm releasing it in China and other markets, I might even do even 13 billion. But I'm estimating here. Last of Us will do 11 billion in the box office. Hence what? Hence it will take out all these movies. It will take out Avengers Endgame easily. With ease. That's how what? That's how crazy of a buzz you're looking at for Xanus, man. That's how crazy of a buzz you're looking at for what? For Last Hope for Xanus movie, obviously. You're looking at crazier buzz than even the book. The book will have crazy buzz, obviously. The book will have unheard of buzz like you've never seen before. Crazier buzz in Harry Potter, crazier buzz in Twilight, crazier buzz in Lord of the Rings, crazier buzz than what? The Way of Kings, crazier buzz in Game of Thrones, but the movie will even have crazier buzz. As now I'm bringing the world to life, obviously. Let's talk about the box office. Let's talk about the records here. Avengers Endgame holds the record at 2.8 billion. Avengers Infinity War did 2 billion. This is like the top 10 most highest grossing movies ever, right? Avatar did 2.7 billion. And Star Wars Force Awakens did 2 billion. Last Hope of Xanus is going to do 11 billion, perhaps even more. Hence, it will take out Avengers Endgame easily. That's how crazy of a budget you're looking at for the Last Hope for Xanus movie. You're looking at something fucking crazy. As my movie Last Hope for Xanus was going to take out, all these movies like easily. I'm also going to have a meter on my website. I'm going to have my web designer. I have this meter, and I'm gonna have him code in Avengers Endgame have the box office number, the box office record, right? Avengers holds the box office record, and once Xanus beats it, you're gonna have. I want them to have this meter, and then oh my god, Last Hope Xanus beat Avengers Endgame with ease. Because all my movies are gonna, and my Last Hope Xanus movie will most likely hold the record for the box office. The Last Hope Xanus movie will beat out all my other movies in the box office because I'm selling it in 3 movies and it's more expensive. And The Last Hope Xanus will have the craziest buzz out of all my movies. See what I'm saying here? I hope you can see the orange well. Because this is like the only marker that works pretty well, man. Because all my other markers are like ran out. They all ran out, man. I'm going to end this video here in a good, 10 minutes. I'm running out of ideas to talk about. A lot of stuff to talk about here. I'm trying to think here. Yeah, I'll say this, okay? If you thought Avengers, Lord of the Rings, obviously, Harry Potter, right? If you thought Avengers, Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter, you know what I'm saying? The Marvel movies, right? If you thought those movies had crazy buzz, you're looking at what? You're looking at buzz 3 times. For what? For Last Hope for Xanus. You're listening fucking crazy, man. Looking at buzz 3 times. Last Hope for Xanus is a whole world we went crazy with my movie. So remember when Avengers came out? Remember when Avengers Infinity War came out? Avengers Endgame came out? You had crazy worldwide buzz for that. A good 200 plus million people were going crazy about the Avengers movies, obviously. For my movie, you're looking at what? Let's say, so for Avengers, you had what? 200 million people. 200 million people going crazy about the movie, obviously. About the movie. For Last Hope for Xanus, you're looking at the whole world going. Realistically speaking, in billion people, the whole world will be going crazy. For Last Hope for Xanus, you're looking at what? I'll say 1 billion plus. For Last Hope for Xanus, you're looking at 1 billion plus people going crazy about the movie. That's you're looking at 3 times the fame of 1 billion people. Compare 200. So even though 200 million is a shitload of people, and Avengers broke the record, compared to Last Hope for Xanus, the movie is like small. The fame for that movie is so small that because for Last Hope for Xanus, you're looking at 1 billion plus people going crazy about the movie, man. You're looking at something fucking crazy, man. So if you thought Avengers, Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter, and the Marvel movies, if you thought, I always forget the right stuff. If you thought those movies had crazy buzz, you're looking at what? At buzz 3 times for Last Hope for Xanus, as Avengers had 200 million, about 200 million people going crazy about the movie. The movie did 2.8 billion. So you're looking at a good 200, 220 million or something like that going crazy about the movie. Last Hope for Xanus, 1 billion plus people. So you have the English-speaking world, which is a billion, and you also have all of China. I'll just say a billion plus people because I don't know how much people, the whole world pretty much, but a billion plus people going crazy about the movie. Obviously, hence what? Hence Avengers buzz is small compared to what? Compared to Last Hope for Xanus, obviously. There was, you had crazy. I remember when I saw Avengers on theaters, it was packed. The whole thing was packed. Everyone was going crazy about Infinity War. I saw Infinity War a good 5 times on theaters. Avengers Endgame was packed when I saw it on theaters, obviously. Crazy worldwide buzz for that. 220 million people going crazy about the movie. And yet for my movie, you're looking at a billion plus people going crazy about the movie for Last Hope for Xanus. Hence, Avengers buzz is small. Even though Avengers had crazy buzz, the Avengers buzz, obviously, is small compared to Last Hope for Xanus, obviously. Because Last Hope for Xanus is what? Because it's an Ivan Reitman movie, the whole world will watch my movie, obviously. At the same time, it's the best story I've told. Once the world reads my book, it's never going to be the same. Hence, they're going to be so excited to watch what? Me bring that world to life. Because once the world reads my book, they're never going to be the same. We're all going to be excited. I can't wait for you, Ivan, to bring that world to life. You're looking at the best story ever told. Obviously. Right? Right? So once the world reads Last Hope for Xanus, obviously, they will be shocked, obviously. They'll be shocked by my story. And will be so hyped for what? For the film adaptation, obviously. So once the world reads Last Hope for Xanus, they will be shocked by my story and will be so hyped for the film adaptation. Because once the world reads my book, they're going to be shocked. Oh my God, this is the best story ever told. Even better than Lord of the Rings. It's a more interesting book than Lord of the Rings. Ivan's a new Marin Tolkien, obviously. Xanus to find a fantasy genre. No fantasy book that comes out after Xanus will be able to beat it. They're going to be shocked by my story and will be so hyped for the film adaptation. Hence why what? Hence why you're looking at what? Hence why the movie will even have crazier buzz than the book, obviously. Because I'm bringing the world to life. Because the world is now brought to life, obviously. You're looking at unheard of technology, aka world. The world and characters are now brought to life, obviously. The world is now brought to life, obviously. You know what I'm saying here? End this video in a good, 5 minutes. So once the world reads Last Hope for Xanus, they will be shocked with my story and will be so hyped for the film adaptation. Hence why the movie will even have crazier buzz in the book because the world is now brought to life, obviously. Hence why you're looking at something crazy. I keep saying this, if you thought Avengers and Star Wars, remember Star Wars Force Awakens, you had that crazy buzz? The movie did over $2 billion, so over 200, 180, 200 million people going crazy with the movie. For my movie, you're looking at the whole English-speaking world, 1 billion people. You also have China and all the other non-speaking worlds, so you're looking at 1 billion plus people. Pretty much the whole world going crazy about the movie, obviously. Hence, even though Avengers had crazy worldwide buzz, the buzz of Avengers compared to Last of Xanus is like side fame. It feels small because Xanus is such an amazing story and it will have much crazier buzz than all the Avengers movies and it will take out Avengers easily in the box office, obviously. So once the world reads Last of Xanus, right, they'll be shocked with my story and will be so hyped for the film adaptation. Hence why the movie will even have crazier buzz in the book because the world is now brought to life. Obviously. What was I going to talk about earlier? I forget, man. I wanted to mention something, but I forget. What was I going to mention? Right? 30 minutes. I'm going to shut this camera for a sec.